Okay, so we already finished until the fonts. Okay, I think this is not that difficult to understand how to write in the markdown. So last time I already explained how to use the uh, palette, okay, and the colors, the code, okay. And yeah, when we have the sharp, okay, so it will indicate the heading. So sharp 1, it means the heading 1. If we have 2 sharp, it means the heading 2. If we have 3 sharps, it is heading 3, and so on. Then the heading will be until 6. And if you want to create table, okay, so I give you also a kind of examples how to create table and how you can insert the figure or graphic. Okay, I also give you example. So if you go to the example here, the table, you need to write something like this one. So if I want to make a new table, so I can make a markdown. So you need to make by your own code. This is the vertical line. For example, header 1, and then header 2, and then another vertical header 3, and then vertical code, vertical line, and then dash, and then vertical line, and then dash, and vertical line, and then dash, and vertical line. Then it starts with another vertical line. Let's say this is 0, 1, and then I have this one. Let's say data 1, and then I have data 2, for example. Okay. And let's say I want to make data number 2, maybe data 1, 1, and this one data 1, 2. Even though the line is not aligned like this, but it will create the table, okay, because they can understand what is the separator. So it means we have 3 columns, and then the data we have 2 rows, and the first row is the header. So if you want to include the graphic or figures, yeah, you need to include the HTML file, like the HTML tag like this one, using the img. Img means image. And then what is the file name? So src means the source. And then you need to define what is the file name. In this case, if you are using the file, yeah, learning check, then you need to put the learning check in your folder. Maybe you will not use any picture for now, so I will just give you a brief introduction about this. Yeah, this is not that difficult. Yeah. How to add a new cell? You can use plus button to add new cell. So this plus will give you a new cell. This scissor will cut the cell. How to write text using the header 2? And you will see this one, in the header. The header 2 means you will put 2 sharp header 2. So this is the header 2. What is the result when you write with 3 single quote? So we learned last time, if you use markdown, and then if you use the single quote like this one, so it will show you the code, not the result of the code. So we know that giving the underline, it will make the word italic. But using this 3 single quote, it will not make it italic. It will just show the text like this one. So that's the thing about the markdown. Later on, if you need more, I think you can figure out by yourself how to create more text. Okay. So next is about the basic programming, the basic concept of programming. So you can type a comment in the code section. The comment means a description in a text format that will not be executed during the code execution. So the comment will start with the sharp. So everything with the sharp like this one, it will be comment. So this is only description of your code. Next is statement. In Python, the statement is straightforward. For example, if you want to print hello, then you can have just hello, like this one. So print hello. And what we want to do here, I think last time we already learned how to execute the cell. We can click here, or you can press Shift Enter, or you can press Alt Enter. Okay. So I think you already know the difference between Shift Enter and Alt Enter. If you want to print different text, so you want to combine one text with another text. Then you can just separate with comma. If you want to print text and numbers, so you can just text and numbers, just separate it with comma. Or if you want to get multiple lines in your notebook, then you can put this 3 dot. You can look at this dot, quote. Okay? The single quote is different. Please check this single quote and this single quote. Okay. The single quote in the first part, this is to print in the markdown. But this single quote is to print in your code. So let's say if I want to print multiple lines, I can use this single quote to print in the code. And if I put 3 like this one, I can print this is personal message. Please check your notebook for the detailed comments. So you can have 3 lines in your notebook. And for the basic operators, I think this is just very simple way to do the basic operators. In Python, it is like human. Okay. So plus means the addition, minus means subtraction, multiplication, division, and integer division, and modulus and exponent. So 2 plus 2, and it is the addition. 2 minus 2, subtraction. 2 multiplied by 3, multiplication. 4 divided by 3, it is division, 1.3333. So it will run automatically without giving any variables or anything to define like Java. Okay, so it's very easy. But for /3, the result is 1. What does it mean? This is the integer division. So whenever you have the numbers 4 divided by 3, it will give you 1.33333. So the integer will be the integer that you get at the first time. So it is not rounded. So let's say if I have like 5 divided by 3. So it will be 1.66666. But what about if I put the double slash? Is it 2 or is it 1? It's 1. Okay. It is not rounded to 2, but it is still 1. Exponent, it is not that difficult to understand this one. It means 2 power of 3. So 2 exponent 3 means 8. Okay. So you know what is the difference between slash and slash slash? Slash is for the division to get the real values. Slash slash is to get the integer division. Okay. Modulus. If you learn the computer programming, I think you know this is to get the remaining value, or we call it namoji. So 10 remaining 3. So it is 1. Okay. Okay. I think I will explain this one with the PowerPoint that I shared to you. So you can go to your e-class. Okay. So in these 2 weeks, we will learn about the Python and the basic class, or what are the functions that you need to know for the data structure and algorithm class. Because it is only 2 weeks, so I cannot, I will make it very fast. Okay, but if I'm too fast, please let me know. So the Python interpreter, okay, we call it, this is an interpreter language. So commands are executed through the Python interpreter. It means the interpreter is a command, evaluates that command, and reports the result of the command. So a programmer, which is you, needs to define a series of commands in advance and save those commands in a text file known as the source code or script. So we are going to use the IPYNB, it means the notebook script. For the general Python, maybe sometimes I will share the Python file, and the Python file, the source code is conventionally stored in a file name with .py. So everything with .py, it is the Python source file. So in this course, we will use the Jupyter notebook, and the file name will be extended with .ipynb. So this is the example of program. Okay. So we are going to learn one by one how to define this one, print, and what is the meaning by this, and what is while, what is if, else if, and so on. First, we need to understand objects in Python. If you learn the computer programming, you will know that any programming languages, most of the programming languages, they are object-oriented languages. And classes form the basis for all data types. Pythons have three built-in classes. The first is integer. It is for the natural number. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 5, 100. Float class is for floating point values. Floating point values means any value with decimal. For example, 36.9. So if it is with decimal, then yeah, it is float. And str is character. Character means A, B, C, or symbols. So we need to understand the identifiers, objects, and the assignment statement. The most important of all Python commands is an assignment statement. So this example, temperature equals 98.6. It means the command establishes temperature, this temperature, as an identifier. Identifier, we call it as the variable name. Sometimes we can say this is the variable name. And the variable name, it associates with the object expressed on the right hand side. The right hand side. This is the right hand side. So this will be the value of the variable temperature. And if you mention with like this one, 98.6, so Python will understand this is float. If you put temperature equals to 36, then Python will understand this is integer. Okay. So let me create. Okay, let me make another chapter 2. Okay. So temperature equals to 98.6. Okay. So if I want to call the temperature, then it will show 98.6 like this. But if I make temp equals to 36, so I want to check what is the temp, then it is showing integer value without the comma. So this kind of values, it is integer, and this kind of value is float. Okay. Identifiers. The identifier means the variable name. Whenever you define the variable name, you need to understand the concept. Identifiers in Python are case sensitive. So temperature with small t is different with the temperature with big T at the front. So if I have this one, temperature equals to 98.6. So let's say I want to call with the big T, temperature. Is it possible? It will be error. The name temperature is not defined. Okay. So you need to be very precise with the case. It is case sensitive. And then identifier can be composed of almost any combination of letters, numerals, and underscore characters. Letters. Letters means A, B, C, something. Okay. A, B, C, D, and so on. Numerals. Numbers. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And underscore. Underbar. Okay. Means the underscore like this. An identifier cannot begin with a numeral. So the variable name cannot begin with numbers. And there are 33 special reserved words that cannot be used as identifier. So you cannot use this one as your variable name. So for example, I want to use continue for my variable name. Continue. As you can see that the word continue now becomes will. So it is not possible to use as variable name. Let's see another word. So for example, you want to put not as the variable name. Not equals to 5. So it is invalid. Okay. Because they already have the reserved words. You cannot use those words for your variable name. Types. Python is a dynamically typed language as there is no advanced declaration associating an identifier with a particular data type. So the identifier can be associated with any type of object. And it can be later reassigned to another object of the same or different type. Although an identifier has no declared type, the object to which it refers to has a definite type. So for example, when you define the temperature, 98.6 is float. So for all the temperature data, it will be associated with float class. And when we deal with objects, it means it will deal with the instantiation. To instantiate an object, we usually invoke the constructor of a class. So for now, I think we don't have any class. Okay. Let's say later we will have the class. We have the class of Boolean. B equals to bool. It means this is a class and I have one object, B. So if I want to see B, the result is false. Okay. There will be many classes that we can use. Okay. Later we will also learn how about the constructor. The constructor, sometimes it requires the parameters. So if it requires parameters, then we need to define what is the parameters. Many of Python built-in classes a literal form for designating new instances. For example, this one is creating the new instance of the float class. So let's say if I have like b equals to bool 3 is greater than 2. So I have one parameter and the parameter is a kind of condition. Then I can get b is true. Why? Because 3 is greater than 2. It is true. If I change this one, 2 is greater than 3. Then the result will be false. So that's about the object that we can create from class. So later on we can have methods. When we have methods, it means it is a kind of function. Python supports function a syntax such as sorted, in which case data is a parameter sent to the function. So we will check later what kind of function that we can use or what kind of method that we can use during the class. Okay. So Python classes may also define one or more methods, or sometimes we call it as a member function. And it is invoked on a specific instance using a class with the dot operator. Maybe we don't have the data. Let's see. Can I check with the temperature dot? So if you want to see like this method, you can type in any variable, and then you can press dot, and then you can press tab. You know the keypad tab. So tab. Okay. When you press the tab, then the Jupyter notebook, Jupyter Lab, can show you what kind of method that you can use for this variable or for this particular object. So this is a function. Okay. And maybe it's not easy to understand this function now. Okay. But later on, yeah, we will learn more about how to deal with this kind of method. So we have the methods. When we use the list, okay, there is a method named sort that can be invoked with a syntax such as data.sort. So we will learn how to use this sort method also later. So there are some built-in classes. We call the class is immutable. Immutable means each object of that class has a fixed value upon instantiation that cannot subsequently be changed. There will be some examples after we go to the next section. Okay. One example is about the float class. It is immutable. We cannot change the value. So what does it mean by change? Later we will learn more. So those are the classes that we can learn. Okay. We have bool. Just remember bool, what I mentioned before. It is using the Boolean value. Boolean, do you know Boolean? It is true or false. Okay, only two options. Integer, okay, it is integer value. Float, okay, floating point number. So those three are immutable. We will learn about list, tuple. For list, it is not immutable. It means the data can be changed. For the tuple, it is immutable. So it is not able to change the data. str, string, it is also immutable. And we will learn set, frozen set, and dictionary. Boolean. As I showed you before, the Boolean using the bool class is used for the logical Boolean values. And there are two instances of that class, only true and false. The default constructor is bool with the parentheses. And whenever you create a bool, it will return false. So that's why when I create C equals to bool, like this one, then C will be false because that's the default value. Python allows the creation of a Boolean value from a non-Boolean type using the syntax bool FOO. So this is the value. Okay. So the interpretation depends upon the type of the parameters. The numbers evaluate to false if 0 and true if non-zero. So you can see like bool 1, it returns to true. But if bool 0, it returns to false. What about if I have 2? It is true. Okay. So they have the basic value. If it is 0, then it is always false. Other non-zero, it is true. Sequences and other container types, such as strings and lists, evaluate to false if empty and true if non-empty. Let's say A equals to top. Okay. And then I want to check bool A. It is true. Okay. Because A has a value. But if I make a kind of B equals to blank, bool B, it is false because B has no string values. Okay. Integer class. The integer is designed to represent the integer values with arbitrary magnitude. Arbitrary magnitude means you can start the integer from very small number 0 until 1 million or maybe 1 billion. Okay. So you can use anything. And Python automatically chooses the internal representation for the integer based upon the magnitude of its value. So I think if you learn Java, they have the specific ranges. If you use integer, then you will use only from 0 until 36,000. If you want to have longer, you need to use long integer. So it's different. In Python, you can just define int. So if you call the int with the parenthesis, it will return 0 by default. So if you put the int 0, or if you want to specify an object in, and then a is 0. So this constructor can also construct an integer value based upon an existing value of another type. For example, if f represents a floating point, then the syntax integer f produces the truncated value of the f. That's it. If I have f equals to 3.14, okay, f, so it is float. So I want to make it as integer f. Then the result will be the integer value of the float point. How about if I have the integer 3.99999999999? What is the result? 4 or 3? The result is still 3. Okay, because we just want to make it as integer, not round it down. And the other thing is we can parse a string. You know, string is something related with the quote. Okay. For example, I make C with number 13579 like this. So everything in between the single quote or the double quote, it will be string. Okay. So I can make integer C. So the C is originally a string, and now I can convert it into integer value. If I print C, then it is a string. So you know the difference. This is integer. This is string because we have the single quote. Float. The float class is floating point. The floating point equivalent to an integral number that can be expressed directly as 2.0. So if I have value float and then I want to make it 5, 5 is integer. But if I use the float function like this, it becomes 5.0. So we can indicate this is a float number. Another form of literal or floating points can be used with the scientific notation. For example, the literal 6.022 exponent 23. The E. The E symbol means the mathematical value with 6.022 multiplied by 10 power 23. Okay, so the E exponent here means it is 10 power 23. The constructor float, it returns to 0.0. And when you give a parameter, the constructor float returns the equivalent floating point value. So if we have the integer, then it will give you the floating point 2.0. If you give the string, then it will give you the value according to the given value on the string. So if you have the float 3.14, it is, yeah, we know 3.14 is a floating point. But if we use the float with the single quote 3.14, then it will give you a float point. So it is automatically changed from the string to the float value. You can also type with the double quote. Double quote, it indicates the same as string. So the single quote, double quote is the same. List. List is used to store a sequence of objects. That is a sequence of references or pointers to objects in the list. The elements of a list may be arbitrary objects, including known objects. Known object means nothing or no value. Lists are array-based sequences, and a list of length n has elements indexed from 0 to n minus 1 inclusive. Lists have the ability to dynamically expand and contract their capacity as needed. So it means if you have 3 array and then you want to extend to 10, then it is automatically can be extended. For some programming language like Java, they need to specify the size of the array. But in Python, they can arrange the array size automatically. So we use the square bracket. The square bracket, it is two delimiters for the list literals. If it is empty list, then we can just use the square bracket without anything. But if we want to include some elements, we can include any elements. The list constructor produces empty list by default. And then if you include the list with the word hello with the parenthesis, it will give you individual characters. That's it. So I make A equals to empty list. Okay, we call it empty list. So A is empty, nothing. I can have B, okay, the list always with the square bracket. I can make red, green, blue, for example. So I have 3 elements. The first element is red, the second element is green, and the third element is blue. So if I run this one, B, it contains 3 elements, red, green, and blue. Lists can be mixed with other kind of data type. For example, C, I have red, 5, and none. So, there's a multiple elements in the list. And you can access the list one by one. We can make lists also as the empty list. Okay. And if we have lists with a string, for example, half, then it will give you a separate character. Because I know this is a string, so when I convert this into list, it means it is individual character. It's UFS. Tuple. So the tuple class provides an immutable or unchangeable version of a sequence, which allow instances to have an internal representation that may be more streamlined than that of lists. So parentheses delimit a tuple. So empty tuple is this one. And to express a tuple of length 1 as a literal, a comma must be placed after the element, but within the parentheses. So for example, 17 is 1 element tuple. Let me show you. If we use the square bracket, it is list. If we use the parenthesis, it is tuple. Okay. Now, if I have 7 half, no. Okay. So it's the same with the list. I can also make the 7 of none. So what is the difference between list and tuple? Lists have an order and tuple not. Actually, both of them, they have the order. Okay, I can make this one A, like this one, and then I want to check the order, so I can access the order. The first order is 7. I can also have P equals to 7 of none. Okay, and then I can check the order is, the first is 7, so the same. The only difference is the immutable. What does it mean by immutable? It is unchangeable. You cannot change the data. So for example, I want to change the index 0, which is 7. Now I would like to change to maybe Yongin. Okay. Tuple, the object does not support item assignment. So you cannot change the value in the tuple. But P is list. Okay. If I change to P index 0, I want to change to Yongin. It's possible. Now it has been changed to Yongin. That's the only difference. Okay. Okay, I think that's the time, so I will stop here. Any questions? No, then I will continue on the next time for the remaining sections. Okay. Thank you very much.